Hello, Nick here. Thought I'd do a quick video on Kemi Badenoch, who's become the new leader of the Conservative Party. I'm going to do this audio only because my camera hasn't arrived, so you won't get to see my classically proportioned features. But Kemi Badenoch has become leader of the Tories, and it's great news for Reform UK and anyone who wants to see the Tories destroyed via the Zero Seats campaign. Because she is, of course, the wrong choice. Nothing against Kemi personally. I'm sure she's a great person, but she is the wrong choice. She is a liberal. She is the choice of the anti-woke liberals and the boomer libs who hover around the Tories, who say, oh, she's so tough on woke. It's great. She's tough on woke. She's so tough on trans. Okay, fine. But is she tough on immigration? Is she really going to tackle any of the biggest problems that Britain faces? Someone who was talking about tackling them, and I know you can't trust the Tories, and I know every time I say this, everyone posts under my Twitter, you can't trust the Tories, Nick. Okay, let's just take that as a given so we don't always have to post it, because there is a character limit on these things. Given that you can't trust the Tories, fine, but just at least on rhetoric alone, Jenrick was talking seriously about immigration. He had a serious plan. He was red-pilled by the disastrous Rwanda policy, and I actually genuinely believe he was. Call me naive if you want, but I genuinely believe Jenrick wanted to tackle immigration. He was even talking about mass deportations, and I've written about this on my Substack, nickdixon.net. He actually was outflanking Farage from the right. We saw that semi-disastrous interview with Stephen Edgington, where Farage just was very wet on mass deportations. And he did this bizarre thing that I compared to Norm Macdonald's joke about being a deeply closeted homosexual.
What's something people don't know about you?
I'm a deeply closeted gay guy.
No kidding.
Well, I'm not coming out, though.
Farage was essentially saying, yes, we need mass deportations, but I can't say that because then the media will have a field day. But obviously we need them, but I'm not going to say that. But he was kind of saying it, but he couldn't say it. Whereas Jenrick was just like, bang, mass deportations, English identity, immigration, and he was just hitting all these big points. So, and imagine, by the way, how good you had to be as a straight white man to even get to second in the contest. He's a kind of J.D. Vance figure, Jenrick, just straight white male excellence. But it wasn't enough, and Kemi made it. And as we see from this picture here, we have Kemi's husband, Hamish Badenoch, with this kind of, let's face it, classic soy face, cuckold face there, just cheering his wife, who he's taken a back seat to. That's not any kind of euphemism. He said that he wanted to take a back seat and let her career be the priority because he wasn't as good at it. So he's just been the supportive husband, looking after the kids, changing nappies, while Kemi's out there, the strong, empowered woman, becoming the leader of the Tories. And we see Jenrick there, absolutely gutted. You see in his face the end of the Tory party. Just, he knows in his face. Look at that. Look at those eyes. Just dead inside. He's like, it's over. All his hard work for nothing. And the Tories are over. And he's thinking already, probably in his mind, do I have to go to Reform UK? He's even got the tie in the Reform UK colours. Now, sartorial enthusiasts will note that he has his jacket done up, which I wondered on Twitter whether this was because it's just a gauche fashion faux pas, or in fact he was thinking I might have to stand up if I've won, and I don't want to be messing around with my button. But then people said no, he already knew he'd lost beforehand, so I guess it wasn't that. Then again, even if you've lost, you've got to stand up and clap, haven't you? And there was a brilliant clip Mabel show of his wife Jenrick clapping, and then she realised, and she was like, I'm not clapping anymore, this is boring. Then she realised everyone was still clapping for Kemi, so she's like, oh, all right, I've got to carry on clapping, have I? In a kind of clapping for Stalin fashion. Anyway, so there's Jenrick the moment he lost, jacket done up, as it shouldn't be, tie poking out strangely, and Hamish Badenoch, and Kemi looks, I don't know, she kind of just looks, I don't know, is she moved? It's hard to tell. But she's won, and it is a disaster for the Tories. Nothing personally against Kemi, I'm sure she's great, but she is the wrong choice, and she's not going to tackle immigration. And the other thing that bothered me is what I'm calling Schrodinger's Kemi, and I'm sure some nerds will correct me and say that's not a great analogy, Nick, but what I mean is the Tories want to have it both ways with Kemi. On the one hand, they want to say she's an example of meritocracy, and we just hire the best person, and we just end up with a naturally diverse cabinet. We're like the kind of England football team. It's just all about talent. We don't care who it is. On the other hand, they want to say, and by the way, isn't it great that she's the first black leader and a black female? Aren't we just crushing it? Aren't we just beating Labour? And you can't have it both ways. And there's an extra point on that, which is that they claim that being a non-white person means that it's impossible for the left to attack you, which isn't true, of course, either. We know from Suella Braverman, she was literally compared to the Nazis by Gary Lineker. How have Suella Braverman and Priti Patel fared? It hasn't gone so well, has it? It's never helped them to be non-white. The left just use a slightly different word. They might not say racist, they might say fascist. They might say Enoch Powell, so it doesn't matter. So that's a stupid argument. But this is what the Tories want to do. And let's have a look at this clip from Bob Blackman, who's the head of the 1922 committee, and here he was introducing Kemi.
And isn't it great that we're the first party to have a black leader of the party? Another glass ceiling shattered.
So you see from Blackman there, he's talking about the glass ceiling. He's bragging about Kemi being the first black leader. And you could say, yeah, he's mocking Rachel Reeves a little bit, talking about the glass ceiling. But I also think he also means it. You know, they're saying it's great that we get to beat Labour at their own game. And James Cleverly tried to do a very similar thing. He tried to mock Labour, saying, oh, pale, male, stale, and then pointing out, no, we've actually cracked this. At the same time, he tried to talk about meritocracy. So it didn't really make any sense. He said, pale, male, and stale, Labour really do need to sort themselves out. So he's mocking Labour because they've called the Tories pale, male, and stale. I understand that. But at the same time, he says Labour's constant obsession with identity politics doesn't actually translate into action. Recruit and reward on merit, and the result is plain to see. So which is it, James? Now, you could argue he's joking, and the merit part is him being serious. But it's a bit of a fudge. Really, the Tories want to have their cake and eat it on this. They want to say, we only care about merit. At the same time, isn't it great? We've got a black female leader. And that just accepts the left's frame completely. That accepts diversity as a good in itself. Why is it a good in itself, I ask, that you have a black female leader? Thatcher didn't emphasize being a woman. She didn't want to emphasize it. She didn't like to talk about it. She just like, I got there on merit. And you could argue in the case of Thatcher that things really were stacked against women then in politics, particularly in the Tory party perhaps, although perhaps even worse in Labour, as we've seen. But Thatcher, you could argue, displayed extraordinary merit because it was even harder, and she still got there. And if you look at her leadership, even if you don't agree with all her policies, you might say, yes, history proves that to be the case. You can't say the same about Theresa May, of course, and now we're in a different era where being a woman may well not be merit. So with Kemi, I suppose if we were being very fair, we'd have to wait and see. But the point is, you have to choose between merit and identity politics. And we're told that Kemi is the anti-woke candidate. She's therefore the anti-identity politics, anti-DEI, anti-critical race theory candidate, you would think. But at the same time, she gets to be the face of identity politics. And she herself has slipped into this. It's not just the party. Kemi has slipped into this herself when she mocked David Tennant as a rich white male. And actually, there was a clip of me talking about this, which ended up in a Reform UK political attack ad. So I've become famous for that.
The reason why I don't like identity politics is because it forces people to look at themselves as tribes.
Lefty white male celebrity so blinded by ideology he can't see the optics of attacking the only black woman in government. And this is where she lost me, because then of course she engaged in identity politics. Are you really an influencer unless you've been used in a 2-minute attack ad that's trying to destroy someone's character on their special day? So the Tories need to decide, and they seem to have picked diversity, they seem to have picked DEI, they've picked identity politics. And what really bothers me about it is, if you're saying that being non-white and not a man are values in themselves, then presumably you're saying that it's bad to be a white man. I can't really see any other way to see it. When they say Kemi is the first black leader, yeah, they're not saying it's great that she's not Japanese. They're saying it's great that she's not white. We all know this, right? You could argue they're saying that it's great that she's a representative of multiculturalism, that in the context of Britain, the fact that she's black means that multiculturalism is thriving. Okay, I might accept that. Maybe. But even so, I don't agree that multiculturalism is an inherent good either. So either they're saying that being black is an inherent good and therefore being white is not, or they're saying that multiculturalism is an inherent good, and I don't think either of those are true. So I think it's very hard to find a party now that isn't explicitly anti-white. Surely this is just their own logic that I'm accepting, because if all the parties agree that it's great to have non-white candidates winning, and indeed Keir Starmer congratulated Kemi and said, oh, it's great to have a black leader, and he capitalised the word black because he's a weirdo. They were all praising Kemi. So all the main parties, except Reform UK, say that it's inherently good to be non-white. And I'm sort of left going, okay, well, I can't vote for you guys then, because you're saying it's inherently bad to be white. You're saying it's great that Kemi won rather than Robert Jenrick because she's black. I go, okay, that can be your view, but obviously I can't vote for you then because I'd be voting against myself. If you're a white person voting for these parties, aren't you saying you hate yourself and your family and you want your children to live in a world where they will be discriminated against because of the colour of their skin? I don't really see any other way to see it. Like I say, at best you're saying that multiculturalism is great, but we all kind of know it isn't. So I find that very, very strange, and the Tories have to pick one, and they have picked one really. They've picked identity politics. They've picked the myth that they don't follow identity politics, and Kemi is the anti-woke non-identity candidate, but she clearly is buying into identity politics. Yes, maybe the party do it more than her, maybe she doesn't emphasise it as much as them, but she goes along with it. She didn't get up at that speech and say, actually, Bob, stop talking about me being a black woman, I'm all about merit. She's gone along with it. So that is my problem with Kemi as leader. But hey, if you're Reform UK, it's great. If you're somebody who wants to destroy the Tory party, hey, you've absolutely smashed it. But there we are, Kemi Badenoch, new leader of the Tories. I mean, it's good for me because I won't have to face a dilemma of whether I should vote for this party. Because with Jenrick, I'd have had to face a genuine dilemma and I might have ended up voting Tory and hating myself. So good for me. I don't have to think about voting Tory ever. I actually never voted Tory, and now I can continue my 100% clean record. Thank you very much. For more, go to nickdixon.net.